say some words to myself. My name is Brecke. I'm an independent executive coach, and I would say I'm a wanderer between the different worlds in some aspects. First, I'm a psychologist, and I'm also an economist, so I combine these two worlds, what seems to be totally different. And I also have studied Japanese in Tokyo for some time, what is also with the German culture very, very different. But I like to explore these different worlds. The second one is I have worked for 15 years in large, big corporates. I was 5 years with Daimler first, and the great thing was they really taught me everything about consulting, coaching, or everything that you would like to get to know. For me as a psychologist, really to consult top executives. 5 years with them, then I was 5 years with a big Swiss bank, UBS. I was responsible for the recruitment center in Zurich. Very nice, good time. It was also the first time where I had intensive leadership for altogether 35 people. And I think people told me it makes sense also to talk a little bit about the careers. I mean, because you will come into these steps at a certain point, and my goal today is also to talk a little bit about my career steps, what I have done, that you can see, okay, what makes sense, what kind of motivation do I have. So I was responsible for the recruitment center there in Zurich. Then they sent me abroad to the US, where I was responsible for leadership development for the US market. In New York City, 2008 to 2009. Does that ring a bell? Financial crisis, huge. So I probably was the last assignee that they had sent abroad. Wonderful, I loved them for it. I had a great time in New York City. I was traveling the whole US, whole Canada at this time. And around me the world collapsed in financial institutions. I also saw, UBS had a very proud, strong culture for leadership development. And I saw it collapse in 2008 more and more. And at a certain point, the leadership programs were most of the time, how do I motivate myself to really go to work every day? It was really tough. What was also cool, I saw the Obama inauguration. My boss was female, black, 60 years old. She was crying every day. She loved it. Culturally, this really was something special to me. And then I was approached by a headhunter who brought me to Deutsche Bank, where I was responsible globally for talent and leadership development for finance. I worked strongly with the CFO of Deutsche Bank, and only 1.5 years. Not my biggest interest when I see Deutsche Bank. I was 3 years with General Electric and was responsible for the European academies, all leadership development. So for the 90,000 employees that we had in Europe, all the leadership programs, trainings, etc. So it was my second bigger manager role, and I realized for myself, managing is something that you really need to love. For me, it's more, I like to lead, I like to be more visionary. So I did this for 3 years, and then I was approached by a headhunter to join Bayersdorf for global development, responsible for talent, leadership development, all the academies, and really creating a vision for that. Then I had some fights with my chief human resources officer, and last year I've built my own business, and at the same time I had published my first book. In German it's called So wollen Top-Talente arbeiten. This is how top talents would like to work, and there I give recommendations also how to build up a corporate culture for the future. And this is something that I would like to talk to you about today. In the 25-30 minutes I will give a summary of all of that, but I also would like to ask you later in the Q&A to ask all career-related and HR questions, because I have 15 years of a career in HR, and I could think that you might have some questions about corporate cultures, careers. So let us discuss at the end. Happy to go into that. So for my book, This is How Top Talents Want to Work, I looked at megatrends until 2005. After that, I looked also into what kind of generations do you have in the workplace. so from all the different generations that we have. And later on I give recommendations how to build up the corporate culture. This is the summary now. So with these mega trends that you see here, you can discuss them. I mean, I have named these 20 for me 2 years ago when I wrote the book. These were the ones, but you can discuss what they are. You have probably heard and you know that the trends, sharing economy, big data, digital workplace, etc. I would like to focus on the blue bullets because I think they are pretty important for corporate culture. So when I look into this now, first, the workforce demographics. You see two people here. On the left-hand side, you see someone that I call the silver ager. He's not so typical. I mean, but let's say aging workforce over 55, 60, etc. I have to say in the last years, they have really suffered from discrimination within bigger corporates. It is very, very difficult as a manager really to hire someone who's 55 or older, because you really have to fight for that. And I think that big corporates are neglecting a trend because you need to look into them. We are suffering from a talent scarcity, and we have to look into all the different work groups and I mean really try to build up another workforce. In the last years it was extremely difficult. And let's say they all have different career aspects and interests. There might be some people who would like to retire early with 57, 58. There might be others who love to work with 70 or 75. I don't really believe in a retirement age where you really say, now's the end. You are not allowed to work anymore. This is ridiculous because it's very, very different between the people. Other thing is, you certainly could hire them with 60%, 40%. I know so many, let's say, aging workforce who would like to work part-time, who would like to do a consultancy work, and still companies are looking for talents. And I don't believe that talents are always in your age with 20 or 22. I mean, talents is the whole workforce, and you have very different talent aspects. So this is something big corporates will have to look into in the future. Second one on the right-hand side, it's clear. Female shift means, I mean, future is female. What I don't like about the discussion in the last years is we are only focusing on the top management. We are only looking into how many female board members do we have in the Deutsche Bank. That doesn't help, it only helps the headhunters. It is very, very profane, and what is necessary is building up a strong managing workforce in the middle management. This is something that I, in my areas, have focused on, really to build up a talent pipeline, let's say a female talent pipeline or whatever, in the middle management. Did you hear about Telecom 3 some years ago in the press that they said now we have 3 female board members on one day? Thomas Sattelberger had this, I think, 3 or 4 years ago. Only one of them was there after half a year. It is not really helpful. It doesn't help also these female talents. They need to build up a strong female workforce in the middle management. Robotics and automatization. Did some of you hear about a study of Frey and Osborne from the year 2014? These guys from the Oxford University, they have looked into jobs and they found out that in 2025, 47% of the American jobs won't be there anymore. They are obsolete because of robotics and automatization. There were some European and also German studies, and they are about the same number, between 40 and 50%. And it's not only about the completely unskilled workers at the assembly line. It's about all jobs who lack of creativity, and it's about jobs where you have standardization. The New York Post, I think 4 years ago, had their first articles published who were written completely by robotics. And they were good. And in the insurance business, robotics are working on the contracts. There is most of the time only a supervisor there who is reading the contracts who are written by robotics and automatization. This is unbelievable. I mean, there's so much going on regarding this that it's scary. It's really scary. And I have to say, when you look into your jobs for the future, look into where do you have to be creative and where won't be any standardization. Everything that can be digitalized will be digitalized. Nothing new for you. Yes. Corporate social responsibility is something that people from corporates have heard in the last 5 years a lot of. The trend has changed a little bit. In the past, it was a hygienic factor. Means, please, no failures in corporate social responsibility. What I think bigger corporates are missing at the moment is the possibility to really be proactive in that. And the company Unilever really is extremely corporate social responsible from the beginning. Most of the companies are just looking, we don't want any scandals. And when we look at Generation Y, and it's so funny when I talk about the Generation Y says, I mean, you are the Generation Y and also sometimes younger, it's dangerous to lose workforce here for most of the companies if they fail here. But I think most of them really could build a business case that they are completely corporate social responsibility. I hate the word work-life balance. We are using it because when I work, I still live. But what is important for the future, I mean, to really integrate this, and for managers, for leaders, it is important to have the discussion with every employee about how do you want to work. And what I am consulting with most of the bigger corporates is individualize that. The Telecom, again, some years ago, they said over the weekends, no emails are allowed. That doesn't help, because lots of people would like to work on the weekends because that they don't have to work so much in the weekdays. So it's an individual thing. I really believe in goals and objectives, and I believe that every individual, when they have a contract with their manager and discuss how to work, it's individual. I don't care when you, as my employee, are working. It's your thing. It's your thing. But if you tell me I'm working from 9 to 6, that is fine. That's absolutely fine. And others will work from 9 to 4. Then they pick up their child from daycare, and at 8 o'clock they log in again. All fine. That is all cool. I mean, our regulations at the moment don't really help in that. And as I know you students here, you probably don't care about the 9 to 5 jobs. It is important that you think about it for yourself, how much you want to work, what is important for you, how much private life you want. And it is not only important to discuss it with the manager and with your co-workers and employees, but also with your partner and your family. Really thinking about what is important for me, how do I want to work. And lots of senior managers don't think about it because they're working all the time. That's really scary. That looks pretty esoteric, doesn't it? But I think that the topic real purpose has become much more important in the last years. And it is about, we all want fulfillment in our jobs. I guess you all think about, okay, I want to fulfill myself. Do you know Maslow's pyramid? Good. When I was taught Maslow's pyramid 25 years ago, they told me only 1% of the population will reach the self-fulfillment. Only 1%. Alarm, danger. We all are struggling to live for that. We all think about, I want to fulfill myself. And that's something dangerous for companies, because there are so many jobs that don't have any purpose. Not real purpose. So I think, and I come to that a little bit later, the most important managerial task is to think about the purpose, to really make clear to all employees what the purpose is of this company, what is not only the strategy, but what is the vision, what are we doing here? There are some nice speeches. When people are building a boat, I mean, teach them how to long for the sea. Or if people are building something, tell them about, we are building a cathedral. It takes 1,000 years, but at a certain point it's a cathedral, it's something big. So it's not about the little task that you are doing. And this is an important thing. I mean, encourage the hearts and emotionalize people is so important. And not all managers are doing a good job there. So real purpose is something you have to think about, but also bigger corporates need to think about for the future. Let's have a look at something that you probably heard a lot about the different generations in the workplace. I mean, you heard about the baby boomers, the Generation X. You're probably laughing that I also mentioned Generation Z here, or Z. There are also books on this generation, and it's a joke, because you can only describe a generation in retrospective. Do you know about Generation 68? They were not described in 67, so it's always a little bit later. But what is interesting about Generation Z, that we are so interested in them because we have this lack of talent, because we don't have enough. If in Germany or Middle Europe there would be a birth rate of 2.8, nobody would even name them. There would be no interest. But we have a birth rate of 1.4, and we are lacking talent. And the other thing is, I mean, there might be enough people for jobs, but not everybody is skilled. Within the bigger corporates, we are all looking at the same job types very much. I mean, it's not only about digitalization. So there's a huge lack that we all see. What I didn't like about the Generation Y discussion is it was exaggerated, and the media made a huge hype out of this. There's one pretty good study by the lately dying Professor Peter Kruse, and he found 3 types of Generation Y. First one is still traditional career-oriented, and I mean it's a little bit profane, but I try to bring them into these clusters. 30% are career-oriented, will probably go into investment banking, want a huge career, want to earn a lot of money, etc. 20% seem to be security-oriented, they want a safe job. And 50% are purpose-driven, are looking for autonomy, and they are discussing with their managers. They don't accept hierarchy so fast as we, my generation and the baby boomer generation did in the past. So if there is no real knowledge behind this hierarchy in the organization, they don't accept it. They will discuss, or they will leave pretty fast. And this is an interesting one. So I can tell you, it's not so easy to deal with your generation because you want to discuss much more. And this is okay. I like that. But I know that a lot of leaders and managers are suffering from that. It's tough. And this makes me again think, and we also see the latest trends in that. Leadership will change massively within the next years. Not only because of you, but because for 100 years we are in the same organizational type. Nothing has changed. We are still in Taylorism in organization. It's still this ridiculous hierarchy of one team leader responsible for 5 to 10 workers. But we are creative. And we are digital, and we need to work more networked, and this is changing massively. And in my last project with Daimler, this is something we looked into. I mean, I give this example. In some areas of Daimler, there will still be a strong hierarchy, whereas I think it will not be one leader responsible for 10 people, but probably 20 in the future, or 30. But a huge part will be more networked. So we have built up network organizations. We have worked with swarm intelligence. We are we have project organizations there. And this is something coming up more and more. So in every board area of Daimler, we have built at least 1, 2, 3 areas where people have a network organization, where there's no complete hierarchy. It might be that in the assembly line, in the production area, this takes a little bit longer, but I believe huge change is coming. Let me look into, let's say, guidance for organizations. I have found 10 recommendations for bigger corporates that I want to talk to you about. The first one is holistic philosophy and real purpose. The CEO and the board and all managers need to make sure what are we working on, making clear what is the purpose of this organization. And not only the big corporates, but everybody, also in the smaller ones. And this is an important one, I mean, to probably catch your interest. The second one is discussing corporate values. So, did you, when you join a company, did you look into their vision or their corporate values? I mean, were you interested in that? I made the funny game to look into the different corporate values of different companies. And it's pretty funny because they all look very, very similar and all the same. And if they are not authentic, it's horrible. At one of my last jobs where I was working for the board member for human resources, the 4 board members discussed corporate values. They came up with 4 bullet points, no operationalization, and my discussion was, I mean, we have to bring this into the leadership programs. We have to discuss what integrity means. We really have to discuss what is it about, and there was only a communication and a marketing campaign about that going on. This is not working. I mean, this is definitely not authentic. So I recommend to all companies, look really into your corporate values and make sure they are authentic. Third one, individual employee development and performance management. Who of you has already made internships? Okay. Did you also go into development discussions or performance management, or do you know what I'm talking about? In a normal, let's say, employee life cycle, at the beginning of the year, you have your goals and objectives. Together with your manager, you discuss, okay, I should look into that. Middle of the year, you look if they are still the same, and at the end of the year, your manager evaluates you if you have done a good job. And on a 5 scale, the manager tells you, this year, great performance, a 3 or 5, fantastic, here's your bonus, plus 5%, have a good day. Not real feedback, forget it. So this needs to change. And I mean, what we have done from HR, certainly, you need to have at least 1 good development discussion, every manager with the employee, once a year, talking about development. That's not enough. So, I mean, most of them did the tick box exercise and just said, okay, we had a development discussion. I typically do a development discussion 3 times a year and talk with the employee, how are you doing? What is your interest? I mean, and give feedback, but also I need to understand what my employees are interested in. From the beginning, when I am responsible as a manager, I want to understand what drives them, what is their motivation, how I can help, because then they are not all the same. And these development discussions help, I mean, to develop, I mean, an employee, that's for sure, but also motivate them and bring them further. And then we have a deal. I mean, if they tell me, I want your job, great. Okay, let's look into this. Let's try this, because I don't want my job to have in 2 or 3 years. I want another job. And the best managers, I think, who should step up into the organizations are the ones who develop their employees. These are the ones who think for the whole organization. And I can tell you, the best company that I have joined in the past, General Electric, did a great job on that. Should I tell you one nice anecdote? The second man at GE after Jeff Immelt is John Weiss, and I had him for a telephone conference with my top talents from Germany. What a joke, I mean, just 15 people. And I had a telephone conference with him. It was 2 o'clock of my time. I said, hey John, how are you doing this morning? Must be pretty early. Yeah, I'm in Chicago. I'm preparing at the moment our annual meeting. Means the press conference how GE had done in the past. Think about Joe Ackermann from Deutsche Bank or anybody. I mean, before the annual conference, before their Bilanzpressekonferenz, how are they doing there? Are they joining 15 nice talents from the middle management for a discussion on their career? No way. No way. This was awesome. And these guys, let's say the top 150 at GE, they are interested in talent development all the time. They are all the time reflecting on how can we develop the organization. Love it. And one really awful example when it comes to talent development, one manager at Daimler told me, I'm not developing this female talent. I mean, she's not leaving my organization. Then my female weight will go down. You understood? Fire this guy. Unbelievable. Fourth one, coaching culture and open feedback culture. I think I went into that. All managers need to understand coaching, and I mean, coaching is not only manager to employee, but in all directions. I mean, we want to learn, and you need an open feedback culture. Feedback has to happen in the moment when something has happened. I know managers who are giving feedback once a year in this performance management discussion. How did you do? They were counting, okay, on this day you did that, on this day you did that. Not helpful. But this is, honestly, I tell you, in lots of corporates, this is still the case, how development discussions or performance management is done. Learning orientation and failure culture. Okay, we are not Americans. It's very difficult for us Germans to fail. It's really hard. If you make a mistake, you're out. At the moment, failure culture is problematic in Germany. I mean, what we have done with GE, you might know startup cultures, or you might know the book by Eric Ries, Lean Startup. We have brought in this really smart guy to really, in the top management, get a startup thinking. That means prototype and fail fast. I have taught all senior managers in Europe to prototype and fail fast in a 300,000 people company. It's working, but it's very American. In Germany, we are always looking into who is to blame for this mistake. This should never happen again. I can tell you, Volkswagen Dieselgate wouldn't have happened with another culture, with a better failure culture. So, I mean, let's say Martin Winterkorn knows the car at heart. He knew everything, but people were afraid of him. They seemed to be afraid to tell if something didn't work. This is a culture that cannot work. So it's very important to build up a culture where people trust each other and where they are not afraid to step up and say, this doesn't work, Martin. But I mean, they were far away from that. And I don't want to blame Volkswagen. I can tell you that other automobile industry people had a similar culture. This can also happen, but they were the first ones to blame. So failure culture, clear learning orientation. In the good companies, everybody's asking after a mistake, what can we learn from this? And Google, again, has a nice example. They have the Penguin Award every month, where they are asking senior managers to present a failure project that where they have failed completely. It is not about we want to blame you, but what can we learn from this? Very nice one. I could recommend this to every company. As really learn from these projects, learn from the mistakes, that this doesn't happen again. Hierarchies for decision making on expert level. In the past, the board decided everything. The clear recommendation is get rid of the hierarchies, of some of the hierarchies. It doesn't make sense also for Siemens or Daimler to have 7 or 8 layers, but 4 or 5. But have the decision on the expert level. If Martin Winterkorn is not the CEO anymore, there might be people who are not that much into detail as people on the ground floor. So it's important that decision making happens where people are experts. It's more motivational, but they understand it much better. And what we did at Daimler, for example, was decision only happens 2 layers above, not more. So there is no board member involved if E3 level of senior managers make a decision. And it's not important, I mean, because it takes too much time. the board and others don't have the time to decide everything. Digitalization needs new structures. I talked about, I mean, first that in some areas you still have traditional culture. In the future you will have more networks. Did you hear the word holacracy? It's a complete democratic organization. It sounds ridiculous, and I'm not completely social romantic, but Zappos, I mean the huge shoe company from the US, they have a holacracy. There is no CEO that makes all the decisions. The founder and CEO of Zappos has written a book, Delivering Happiness. I mean, he's not making the decisions anymore. I'm just talking about this. There are some phenomena in organizations that are happening where I think this is crazy. And not only startups, but companies with 20,000, 30,000 people. I got to know the CEO of Haufe Umantis some weeks ago, Mark Stoffel. Haufe Umantis, 1,500 people. He was voted again by the employees as a CEO some weeks ago. And he was happy about that. Another CEO stepped down and said to himself, okay, I don't want to leave the company, but Mark is the better one. So I mean, not the chairman decided to have Mark as a CEO, but all 1,500 employees. I guess that also leadership will change. Leadership, there will be fluctuation. At the moment, let's say with Siemens or Daimler, if you've made it to team lead, you will never go down again. You will always be a manager. This is not the future. I think this will rotate. Leadership can rotate, and this is fine. Because in the past, we have nominated people as a leader who didn't deserve it or are not able to do it. And in the past, we have promoted the best experts, but who are not coaches or are not able to bring the right people into the right projects. Mindful leadership. I mean, you can talk for hours about leadership, but I think Jim Collins is a good read. He has written Good to Great already in '95. But he recommended a leadership style of professionalism and, I call it, confident humility. So someone who is not egocentric leading, but really bringing in other people and really be a team player. And mindfulness is also a nice buzzword, but I think people who are mindful with themselves and with others are great leaders. And they still can be tough in decision making. Massive invest in talent management. That doesn't mean that we need a lot of marketing for employer branding in the future, that we are great at Kununu, that you hopefully know, all these all these data about big companies, how they are doing and how it is. It means, what I mentioned with GE, that senior management is interested in developing their top talent further. Because talent scarcity is not something that you can buy in all the time. You have to develop them most of the time internally. That's an important one. I want to show you something also about modern office spaces. And I mentioned Google in one example. The problem for most of the companies, they don't have the capital power of Google and Apple. And here on the left-hand side above, you see the Apple headquarter. On the right-hand side above, you see the Facebook headquarter, and the two pictures below, the two images, are Google spaces. Why are they doing this? And what can companies do who don't have this capital power? What Google, Facebook, and Apple are doing pretty well is they bring all employees really into the flow. I mean, the Google Employee Day is they are picked up by buses in the Silicon Valley. These buses have Wi-Fi, I mean, then they are brought into the company, then they have their coffee there, it's all free. I mean, food is free, coffee is free, okay, cleaning service free, it's everything free. And Google has also implemented, you know the word social freezing? Social freezing means, for females it can be important, that they can save their eggs for later on. I mean, when they are 45 or something, when they want to get pregnant. Difficult to describe from here. But Google is paying for that. $10,000 for female workforce with social freezing. Why do they do that? They want to keep their talent. I mean, it's totally egotistical. And I mean, it's really special. And I mean, when people are picked up in the Silicon Valley by the buses with a Wi-Fi, it's only about they can work all the time. So as a Google employee, you can work all the time, you don't have to go home anymore. How nice. But it's a business case. It's a clear business case from them. And don't know if these worlds are really so beautiful. Think about it. Second one is what they're really doing good is they are building places where the different departments and silos are meeting each other. So there are 100,000 food courts everywhere, you get every food, and people are working everywhere and they're discussing. When you are in a German company, where do you get the best information? Cafeteria? Yeah. Canteen, cafeteria, coffee shop, or in the smoking area. I don't smoke, but I know that these people, smokers, are very well informed all the time. But I mean, this is something they are doing great. And I mean, at Bayersdorf, we were just, I mean, after 3 o'clock, you didn't get any food anymore with 20,000 people. Ridiculous. So I mean, people went home at 5:30 or 6 because they were hungry. This is something companies shouldn't do. I mean, they should provide free food. The workforce is working longer. But for you, as joining the workforce at a certain point, think about they are not all, how do I say that? I mean, it's egotistic thinking. They are getting your workforce much better. Okay, that's it from my side about recommendations. What kind of questions do you have?
Do you think that in 5 to 6 years, hierarchies and major corporations will shift to a more general, flow? Do you think that there will be a large shift when many of us join the workforce?
Probably not so fast, but in some aspects, I would expect that there might be less layers, and I guess that there are more agile areas where there's not a complete hierarchy. What I've seen in prototyping in some bigger corporates. Network organizations, a project for 4 months in this area, this might change. I mean, there are companies that don't have any hierarchies anymore. There are some startups that pay everybody, also the cleaning woman, the same amount of money. I have a good friend who is the owner of a 50 people company, and I mean he's CEO and doesn't make really strategic decisions. Everything is discussed. Everything is somehow discussed with all the workforce. They are also discussing salaries of everybody. If an employee wants more salary, it's discussed with everybody. It's all open. And if someone is joining the company, I mean, everybody's interviewing. I mean, a part of them. This all is changing. I don't think that the managerial powers will not be so strong in the future. Thanks. Please.
As we were talking about the performance evaluation, most of the time the performance evaluation is done by our immediate leadership, like our immediate managers, and that is on the basis of the goals we have set and how much we have achieved, the escalations we have had, and the appreciations we have received. But I wanted to know your views on the peer evaluation. Do you think it is, in nowadays, it is very important to have peer evaluation as well, since those are the people we actually work with day to day, and they know of our, immediate activities are immediate successes and failures.
No, absolutely. A 360 feedback is the most important one. And I mean, it was a huge step for Daimler that we now have implemented 360. So, fantastic. I mean, let's say, I think 12 years ago when I was with UBS, I think the best performance management for this time was we had a 360 for every employee. I mean, they could nominate 3 people from the peers, manager, their other project workers, and everybody, so that we had at least 8 voices about their performance. And then for me as a manager, it was so easy to evaluate, because I think for a manager it is difficult to have I mean, from only my subjective perspective, I don't like that. I want to see what others think about the employee. And for me, the question is, I mean, if I'm the only one who has the perspective, a negative perspective on someone, probably I'm wrong. And I mean, it's very helpful. 360 is great. I think in the future it might not be the manager anymore. It's to be discussed. It could be really a democratic, let's say, about the 360. What is critical sometimes, you have to be careful that not all best buddies are nominating themselves. So it can happen, okay, I give you a good rating and you give me a good rating, okay, be careful. So there probably should be someone from the manager perspective saying, I think I would like to have a view from this person or that person because this is your most important co-worker or your most important client. Thanks for the question, great.
Hi. You gave an example of a company which has 1,500 employees and they elected their CEO, which you mentioned as a change in leadership or corporate culture going forward. Do you also have an example of a rather larger company where this is being implemented or at least being considered in the future?
My example from General Electric with 300,000 people is not large enough.
Oh, okay. All right.
I think there are probably 5 bigger corporates in the world. Maybe Tata. I don't know.
Thank you.
No, you're welcome. But I think this is why I mentioned this. It's such a huge company, but they were extremely agile. Pretty good at that. I mean, and let's say it's a tough company. It's very performance oriented. I would say that consultants like to work for that company. It works pretty well. But I think they are very agile and they have some startup characters in it.
That's also very interesting because I was working with General Electric until last month.
Okay.
And maybe they are bringing this up now.
They did. 2013, they started with lean startup principles. So we had Eric Ries as our main consultant. But this takes time. A cultural change takes 5, 10 or more years. I know. Thanks. More questions regarding careers? What company should I join? You can ask everything. Go ahead.
Again, I'm from a tech background and I'm doing a master's in management right now. So what do you think should be approach for a management student to develop skills so that that person is suitable for an HR role? Because that is something I'm specifically interested in. So I wanted your views on how should we, develop our skills for HR.
To be agile. And you have a management background, you said?
I'm from engineering background, but I'm studying management now.
Okay. Difficult one. What I could recommend is do as much internships and practical work as possible really to find out what you're interested in. I know too many people who are, let's say, you are not here too theoretical, I would say. I mean, you probably go into corporates and startups and companies pretty soon, but find out what you're good at. Some people join their first job and never leave, but they don't know what they're good at really. So it helps really to find that out, and more practical work as internship and I mean, also recommendation could be, I think a bachelor is a great background and it's enough to start working. And it's really finding out what I'm interested in, and I mean, it happens really at the workplace. At a certain point, having a master later on. And when you see it's not enough, I want to go deeper into that, do it. But I would recommend to join workforce as early as possible, really to understand what it is about. And there are some companies who found your master or your doctoral thesis or something. But it's a hard one, certainly. Shoot. Or do you all want your beer? No.
So a few hours ago we had a presentation in this very room by an executive of Cisco, and he said, talking about war of talent and things like that, he said, sorry guys, don't be offended, but I really want the tech guys. So not like that, not a little less me, but like, yeah, what we're really looking for is like data science and things like that. What's your perspective on business and economics and subjects like that in the future workforce?
They are all looking for digital guys at the moment. Certainly Cisco is so digital, they are knee-deep into that. But everybody is looking for them, and at the moment the salaries that are paid are ridiculous. But understandable. I mean, and let's say at the bigger corporates like Daimler, etc., I mean, we pay probably more money for that. But it's not that we all now go into digitalization, but you need to understand what it is about. And I mean, let's say, and link your specialization probably with everything that happens in digitalization. Yeah, but I mean, these are some special tech guys, I mean, who have reinvented the wheel in digital. It's clear that he says, we want you for that. But I mean, there are not so many. No worries. we still need all the other workforce as well.
Regards the career, do you think it's better to join in a smaller company the first time to improve your skills more?
Difficult to say. It really depends on your type. This is why I say try as many interns and as many jobs as possible. What is good, I mean, you have more responsibility in a smaller company from the beginning. If you join Siemens, Daimler or so, and you mean on the, let's say on the lowest academic level, it takes some time until you realize what you're doing. I would say helpful. I myself specialized pretty early on something because I knew that leadership development is mine. This was clear, but it was brave. I could have missed something more interesting also. Okay, if there are no more questions, thank you so much. Enjoy your